Hello and welcome to Corporate Culture, your podcast about cooperation, conflict, and culture at work. My name is Paul Emtsev, and today I speak with Adam Ambrozy. Adam is the co-founder of a company called MakeTeamWork, and I would like to ask him what makes a team work, why he cares so much about it, and what we can do to work better with others. Adam, thank you for joining the conversation.
Hi, Paul. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a great
Glad to be
pleasure.
here with you today. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Um, Adam, where does your interest in teamwork come from?
Well, when I was a kid, I really loved sports teams, and I was observing them, and I was always wondering, all right, so we have great players on both sides, but what makes one team better than the other team? And then I started observing, I started reading about it, and that's the initial spark of my interest. And then I
Mm.
also followed up. I set up a few teams. I was a captain of a handball team for a while when I was a teenager, and also I set up some scout team at school. So I had the opportunity to see it also from the practical perspective.
Nice, nice. So it started with sports. When I think about sports, I usually think about the goal of winning. So usually sport teams are competing right against other teams. Um, is that your main motivation when you think about teams, like make teams win, or is there more to it? What do you think?
Well, it's like I'd say that makes team win is still like the first objective. It's not only in sport teams, but this winning, like, while in sports, winning can be easily explained. In life,
Mhm.
winning might mean something else for different groups of people. Just to give a
Mhm.
brief example, for a younger person, probably higher salary will be a huge win at work and bonuses, while for people more advanced in their careers, flexibility might be an asset. So the win, what's the win? Is win just business results, or is the win like a broader concept?
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, essentially yes. Responding to your question, yes, is about teams winning
Okay.
what they want to win. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I saw on your website, on the Make Team Work website, at the right at the very start, it says enhance team performance. And I was curious what you mean when you think about performance of a team.
I mean, about performance, I essentially think about two factors about effectiveness. So how good the product is, or the services, or whatever the team is working on, and also efficiency measured by simple time to task. So how fast we can achieve things that we plan to achieve. So this
Hmm.
is what we mean by performance: effectiveness and efficiency.
Okay. And is there a specific driver for you personally? So, do you care mostly about the output of the team, for example, because you like the product, or is it for you a means in itself to just say it's just fun to be more efficient no matter what the product is?
Well, I personally prefer to work on products that I connect also at the emotional level with. However, we work with various organizations, and it's not always possible. And I always connect with people who are behind these projects or products. Therefore, I leave aside all the ethical nuances of whether it's ethical to work with certain organization or not. I focus on people, and I believe that
Okay.
working and enhancing people's capabilities is always ethical, unless
Okay.
their aims are clearly against your values, which might happen. But
Mhm.
fortunately, I'm privileged enough to work with teams that have values aligned with ours.
So you would say that the people matter more than the product for you in your work when you work with teams.
Oh, definitely, because if you look at what we do, we facilitate, we train human-centered design. We also coach teams and individuals. So we are not always at the position to be product experts in all the processes. We are at the position of collaboration experts, and coaches. So we join teams for them to enhance how they work together and how they deliver together.
Mm-hmm. Is there something that you like especially about your work? So something that is especially fun to you? And are there maybe things where you say, this is part of my job, but it's rather a challenge. It's sometimes also, annoying.
There are many challenges, and we are hired to address these challenges. So it's not
Mm.
always full pleasure, because we see a lot of conflict, we see a lot of silo initially. We also see unclear roles or lack of vision, or unconfident leaders in place. So there are, of course, challenges to tackle, but all of them lead to like solving them, addressing them leads to aha moments. And this is what I love the most, when there is this aha moment, when I clearly see that somebody shifted mindset, or started using new skills, and they just report back to me, oh, Adam, we tried this method and it was actually awesome, and then I tried it at home, and it was also awesome. So such aha moments really bring me energy.
So it's actually the challenge that makes the thing also fun for you, the work you do.
Absolutely. Like in the end, you know how it is. In the beginning, you need a little bit of sweat, a little bit of tears, but after the initial hustle, then when you reach the objective, it's just awesome moment.
Mm.
When you say, "All
Nice.
right, it makes sense. It makes sense. It's not like nonsense what you do. It really brings change." These moments I absolutely adore.
Yeah, yeah. If we dive a bit deeper also in the name of your company, so it's called MakeTeamWork, and we talk a bit about teamwork, maybe we can become a bit more concrete. So I imagine to be maybe a team leader who has some issues or some challenges with his team. I call you and I cannot really tell you what is the problem, but it's just, it's not feeling well. Um, do you have some key factors for successful teamwork that you are looking at? Do you have some sort of a screen, or is there like a one size fits all approach at all?
So there are models, and one of the models we use is model of Tuchman/Whelan. It's called Integrated Model of Group Development, that mentions 10 key factors in teams' health, such as vision, roles clarity, collaboration, communication, feedback processes, and so on. There are 10 of them. So this model gives me like one of the frameworks are used. The second framework would be psychological safety. I always try to detect whether, like, I try to observe whether people feel safe to share, to have conflicting opinions, and all in all, whether they feel comfortable enough to go for task-related conflicts, because I love task and I encourage task-related conflicts. I think that no team can go for high performance without task-related conflicts. So what I mean by task-related conflict is that we have different opinions how to handle or how to approach certain issue, and we are still open to discuss them and work out the best solution together, which is slightly opposite than, or very opposite than, personal conflict.
Mhm.
So integrated model of group development is one of my lenses. Psychological safety is another, and there is also nice approach from Patrick Lencioni called 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And I also look through 5 dysfunctions of a team. However, I need to say that I usually look at Tuchman/Susan Whelan model, which is more concrete when it comes to these 10 key factors that differentiate healthy teams from or high performing teams from non-high performing teams. So I look through the models, but of course people are more important than models, and tools are as good as people who use the tools.
Mhm.
So I always encourage retrospective. I sometimes also watch some recordings from teams, and then write my initial opinion on how to in what ways the team can improve its performance, and what the leader can do, because the role of the leader also changes, like depending on the team stage. So forget about just one leadership style. One leadership style might be natural for you, or you might like it the most. However, your team will need all the leadership styles, not all mentioned by science, but different leadership styles, from more directive in the beginning to more facilitating conflict later, a little bit later on, to more coaching style when you are already a leader of a high performing team. So I hope it brings a little bit of clarity and answer to your question. So to wrap up, I use these three lenses. So Whelan/Tuchman, psychological safety. Usually I use different materials from Amy Edmondson and also Patrick Lencioni. And I use them to gain clarity and for the insight I generate from observations / interviews / questionnaires from all the information. I gather all the information first that is possible to be gathered, and then I look through the lenses that this model enable. I hope it makes it clear for all the listeners.
Yeah, it does. And I find it interesting that you mention especially psychological safety and also general the focus on people, because we started the discussion also talking about efficiency and performance. And I feel that still today, many people, when they hear these words like efficiency or performance, they think of improving processes. And I have this feeling that now you talk a lot about people and about how they feel, and it doesn't it's not the first thing that comes to mind sometimes. Like, we have to be more efficient, we have to be faster. So how do you combine these two things of people who want to go fast and efficient? And you talk about how you feel today and how are people feeling in the company?
Well, I'm not saying that each and every conversation should be focused on how people feel. What I'm trying to say is that the emotional state of people directly results in their motivation to do certain stuff, and the motivation enhances the engagement and therefore business results. And for this, we have scientific evidence. So I see the conflict, and these two concepts seem to still to be living in quite a silo, efficiency, effectiveness versus human approach. But from my practical tests, and I applied it in 3 teams in my life from scratch, and I was observing how they developed over time, and the average growth, or maybe I shouldn't be talking about average growth, but the growth that these 3 teams achieved one year to year was between 15 and 35%. So I believe that the most overlooked thing that we can really imagine is the connection between efficiency and effectiveness and how we really design for people. It's more or less, if you want loyal customers, the customer obsession of your team and really designing for your team wants is the key. And there is I think there's less discussion around this topic, and more or less team obsession and people obsession in organization also leads to higher motivation and higher engagement. That leads, of course, if the vision is there, if there is roles clarity and so on. But this element, this human factor, can improve team performance. I'm not sure whether there is a limit. I never heard of any limit. In my personal practice, I would say that 30% after 6 months is absolutely doable. From just having leadership focused on transaction, so having just awards and punishments as a way to go, to leadership focused on transformation and team transformation, from low performing or from the initial forming stage to the high performing stage.
Yeah.
So I believe that many people don't see this connection, and of course we were raised not looking at this connection. In our education, there was not that much of human factors, emotional management, motivation, and so on. We were just told to do thing and we were delivering, whether we liked it or not. I don't
Mm.
know about you, but in my history, education looked like this, in my
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. And I honestly, I feel that still today, yes, we talk more about psychological safety and topics like that, but I feel that still the goal or the reason why we talk about this is still again the performance. So I'm wondering if this is really a mindset shift or if we're just talking about new tools and methods to again make people perform more and better. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about this, whether, for example, psychological safety or teamwork, just a well like harmoniously working team is already a goal in itself, or does it always have to serve that purpose of higher performance in the end?
Well, in my opinion, teams are formed to win. So it's higher performance in the end.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do all that I do, especially, I mean, not all, because I also have a part of individual one-on-one coaching when I coach people through their personal transformations, career change, and so on. And let's leave it aside. But when it comes to team coaching and it's all about the results. There is no transformation if there is no vision, what we want to achieve. If there is no vision, what we want to achieve, like your transformation might make some people feel better in the short term, but it's not really. It's a road to nowhere from in the business world, and it also will not deliver high ROI. And in the end, this is what we do. So this is the paradox. To me, it's a paradox, that we quite often think about human factor, like human well-being, even or human motivation, human engagement as a separate thing than effectiveness and efficiency. I believe that actually the easiest way, I'm saying the easiest because it's not still, even if these concepts are known, the cultures in organizations do not necessarily follow or apply the principles of these concepts. This is why I believe that these are not new concepts, but applying them in organizational culture is still reasonably new.
Yeah, yeah.
It's maybe not new, but it's not really well spread. I very rarely meet people who do not understand or who didn't learn during their studies about forming, storming, norming, performing model, so the Tuckman model. But I haven't seen many people. So everybody heard about it during studies, but I don't see people really using it as a useful framework to develop their teams. To understand that right now we are in a forming stage and people are afraid to talk, and it's sort of a cocktail party when everybody is nice to one another. People do not challenge one another. There is no task-related conflict. In such cultures, you don't get the synergy of teamwork. You don't build on each other ideas because people are simply afraid to go for conflict. And so I don't see leaders realizing that. I don't see leaders changing their style over time. There are still very few leaders that I met in life who do this. So even if the concepts are not new, I still feel huge potential of popularizing them, but not as theoretical concepts, but more in practical use within organizational culture.
Yeah. And I liked your point of saying that efficiency, performance, and well-being and these human factors, they are of course connected, right? It's not like an either-or question. To me, an interesting question still is what is the main product and what is kind of the byproduct? And I found interesting how you said that the main goal, like the main product, let's say, is enhancing the performance, and the other is kind of part of it or helps towards that. I think there are also other people who would say that the main goal can also be the human well-being, and then the efficiency or the performance is the byproduct of that, of people feeling well. But maybe it also goes both ways, right?
Well, I believe it goes both ways, because like if you look at, for instance, if you have a problem with turnover and people are leaving your organization, right? And you just start researching and you find out that people are just not happy, they don't have work-life balance and so on, then you might focus on improving certain factors. But is it really focusing on improving human well-being as the first objective, or is there still a business objective of lowering turnover, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, what I'm trying to say, like, don't get me wrong, I love seeing people motivated and engaged at work. It also gives me a huge boost. But I would like to address this misconception that this is a goal by itself. No, we don't work, we don't play in teams in order to always have fun. We play in teams in order to win. Whatever this winning means to us, but we always play to win. Otherwise, we lack shared objective, shared purpose, shared goal. And then we don't have a team really, because team without a goal is just a bunch of people who come for a cocktail party to drink a tea and have fun and have some private conversations with one another. But what we are
Yeah.
trying to
I like the metaphor, because also at a cocktail party, usually you pay money for the cocktails, and in a team, usually you get paid to do something. So if it's only about the fun, I understand your point, right? So it makes sense to me.
I really like your point on this, because it builds it totally builds, because in the end, when we come and we don't go for task related conflicts, we think that something could be done in a different manner or approach it differently, and it will be better, it would improve efficiency and effectiveness, and we don't share it. Then are we using our potential for the organization or not? Should we buy our tea, our cocktail, or should the cocktail be given to us? You know what I mean? It's like this is another. It's very philosophical right now. I feel it's very philosophical, maybe a little bit fuzzy for our listeners, but yeah, I like how it builds on one another, and we could just continue building on the blocks like that forever.
Yeah. And I wanted to touch on another point as well, because I know that your company also works a lot in the online world. And I was wondering, I mean, we all have some experience with online working since COVID, for sure, most of us even before. Are there some specific things in the online collaboration that are very different, or that you have to take more care of compared to a classic collaboration where we're all in the same room or in the same office?
Well, I'm not sure how special they are, but definitely there are some, both on the technology part and on the intention part. It's slightly different. On technology part, in online collaboration, we quite often use whiteboards like Mural or Miro or Figma or other, depending on teams we work with. And this is we rarely use these technologies in real life. We usually have some kind of like whiteboard or a board in a room, and we just use this. The second is intention, because the intention, you need to be much more intentional when you work remotely, because you lose all these conversations over lunch or over coffee machine. So you can't really. So you need to be really intentional and think how you want to deliver, whose help you will need, and so on. And also within this intentional part, I would say that aligning on the culture, aligning on the hours that we all should be online, also on our meeting structure, is super, super important. So I would say that these two differences are the most important. On one hand, technology; on the other, cultural alignment and being intentional. Because it's like, if you have the opportunity to work remotely, the question is how we can all maximize the value of our life also without compromising our delivery. And this needs discussion. Like the lunchtime for you might be 12 o'clock, lunchtime for me might be 1 o'clock. We still need to. It's quite trivial example, but this is like
Lunch is important still. It's an important topic to have lunch.
It's super important. Food, sleep,
Exactly, yeah.
and and movement, physical movement is very important. But you know what I mean? I'm trying to say that this intentionality and sharing and forming culture helps with that. And I would say that the third thing, probably you need a little bit more, a little bit more documentation when you are remotely. And it's also like when new people are onboarded, they will not meet new colleagues over lunch again. So it's important that they have the opportunity to learn about new colleagues, learn how you want to, who you are, what you work on, like how you like giving and receiving feedback and so on. And there are very good templates for it. I can recommend Atlassian's user manual. So if you Google, to our listeners, if you Google Atlassian and user manual together, then you will encounter a short deck that serves the purpose of self-presentation in a team. So I think like this intentionality is super important. And beyond that, one more thing that I want to mention is that, you know, for some people, and I estimate the number for like 20%, office is just the place to work. They like being in the office. They need this energy change from home to the office, you know. So then, of course, there is a group, probably a little bit bigger group that likes also full remote setup. There is a group that finds themselves in a hybrid setup, much better. But you know, it's like we need to take into consideration also these groups and how we recruit. For somebody who needs office, probably being hired to a fully remote company might not be the best option for their life. You know? And I sense a lot of discussion in the market, or should it be fully remote? Should it be hybrid? Should it be flexible? Should it be not? I'm a huge fan of people choosing and also leaders choosing, and then they might lose. That there might be consequences like losing talent. That is not like I see like massive movement back to the office, while at the same time I see high turnover in some of these companies because people do not want to work just from the office, you know. So I guess there are different factors, but to wrap it up, technology differs, intentionality differs, and it's worth also to have in mind before taking any decisions. It's worth to have in mind people's preferences.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I would say that the most productive sessions usually happen remotely.
Oh, wow.
But in real, like when we just measure time to task, so we are to develop certain plan, and we have online session versus offline session, and we facilitate both. So we don't have preferences; we do both. But what I see that online sessions can be for the same task, they can be a little bit shorter, like 20 to 30% shorter, I would say.
I like that you specify this, that when it comes to, for example, delivering specific tasks, online is maybe more effective. I liked your example also before about the coffee machine, you know, having a chat at the coffee machine, which happens usually at the office. And one big difference that I realize when I facilitate in-person workshops compared to online workshops is that exactly these connection between people, these informal connections, they are very different in person and online. I feel that, for example, when I'm as a facilitator, a part of a group, the main connection of the group happens when I'm actually not there. It happens when they are going outside, when they're having lunch breaks. That's when often the connection happens. It's not me who is doing that. I give them a room to get to know each other, but they do it on their own. And it also happens when, for example, something happens on the main stage, but then 2 or 3 neighbors, they're talking to each other in an in-person setting. And these are exactly the things that in online setting don't work, right? Because if you speak, everybody hears you. So either you're muted or you have to speak up and everybody. So these kind of side chats you don't have. And for me, it would be a very interesting question to ask you when it comes not only to the output of the team, but to build team connection. Do you have any tricks or advice on how to build that team connection in an online setting?
Excellent question, Paul. Excellent question. It should be stated more often in the global working culture environment. Yes, I have an answer to it. I am in one of the French scale-ups. There is a ritual, team ritual called Chilco, and its objective is for each and every team member meet other team members at least once a week for one-on-one, half an hour to 45 minutes to talk about everything but not work.
Mhm. Mm,
Again,
mhm.
this element of intentionality, right? That we have like a one-on-one check-in, and we talk about everything but not work. And I have like such check-ins with actually Bjorn, my very good German friend, and we discuss different concepts every week, and we've been doing it for 4 years so far. Where we connect every week, we connect on WhatsApp, very rarely with video, so we don't even see each other, so we can't really judge from our body language. We can of course judge from tone of voice, but we can't judge from we can't receive body language. But nevertheless, we build certain connections over time, and then when we meet and we are sitting over a cuppa, then we easily do follow-ups on all these topics that we discussed on the phone. And are we connected? Probably if we could meet for coffee, we could also feel, our energy, our smell, look each other in the eye, and have more like also bodily connection, something that our like more senses would respond to, not just hearing, right? Uh, so definitely yes, but it can be also built online. And to wrap it up,
Mm, mhm.
the first step to build it online is to agree such check-ins or chilcos, as they are called in some organizations, regularly once a week with the team to talk about anything else but work.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that point, and I think you mentioned a really important aspect is to make it intentional and to make that space for it, right? So exactly these like coffee machine chats, they cannot happen naturally in online setting. You have to make extra space for it. I really
Precisely.
found it very important that you mentioned this. Um, and also, I agree with the other point of, you know, I remember that last year we also met in Amsterdam for a coffee, and I think that this one meeting between the two of us also makes it easier now to continue working online. And I think it would have been very different if we have never met in person. So I think that maybe also playing with both and using, both platforms can be very useful, as you said. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is also what we notice when we interview fully remote people from fully remote organizations. That is like one meeting that they have throughout the year for everybody. It serves the connection. People love it, even if people love staying remotely for most of the year. This one or two offsites per year, it's just awesome opportunity. But it's not opportunity to work together. It's
Yeah.
opportunity, how you mentioned, to build this connection, to build trust, to smell, to almost like to smell each other. Using
Yeah, yeah, you can do that as well. Yeah, sure. Uh, yeah, no, I really agree. Yeah. When we think about making teams work and help teams improve, of course, there's always a big personal development aspect and a learning aspect to it, right? So as an individual, but also as a group, we are learning, or we have to learn certain things in a process if we want to improve as a team. Um, and I'm often asking myself the question also in my personal work, how do humans learn the best generally? And focusing also on this teamwork aspect. So as I understand your work, your goal usually is not only to help individuals improve, but also to help a whole group improve. So it's kind of a group learning process. Um, do you have any insights on what are the best methods to make humans learn as a group?
yes, failing fast as a group and identifying what fails. So,
Mm.
of course, in an individual setup, is much easier to imagine than in a team setup, because what is failing on a team setup, you know. But I would say that if if anybody wants to start, a retrospective would be an event when you reflect on what's working well, what is not working well, and how we can improve. This team discussion of what is not working well in our project or in our process or in our culture, whatever topic you choose, because retrospective can be applied to almost any topic, then this is the way to learn together. So you have this element of psychological safety in it also. So make sure that everybody shares honest opinions, and on the other hand, doing it together as a team. So like such a simple meeting as retrospective is probably the most important meeting that a team can have in order to learn together. And like to zoom out a little bit, the best way to learn is, of course, from mistakes. The best if they are not your mistakes, but also learning fast from failure is great. So another piece of advice would be to test, get feedback, because really, I can't really recall one product in the world that has been developed like just like with the magic wand. It's like Edison failed 10,000 times, and I think there is a famous quote from Thomas Edison: "I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just discovered what is not working." And I believe that this sort of mindset, growth mindset, that we are not fixed, but we want to grow, is super important when one or a team wants to learn. And the easiest way individually is to apply reflection. So really, reflect on what happened, how did it influence you, what can you learn, how will you use the learning in life in the future, and just reflecting and writing it down is a great way to start. At the team level, retrospective. So again, very simple framework. What work you get any topic, and you reflect together in a team what works well, what doesn't work well, how we can improve. This really works magic.
Yeah. You mentioned this fear of failure, and I think it's often the kind of elephant in the room, I would say, in also innovation processes, in creativity processes as well. Why are we so afraid of failure, and how can we help reduce that fear?
This is a very good question. Again, excellent question, Paul, because are we really afraid of failure, or are we afraid of the consequences that the culture offers to us for failure? I'm asking because like I don't have an answer, like a very straight answer to your question, but I started asking myself the same question when I just was, I think, reading Harari's book, and when I realized that we are okay, we were created for change. Like hunter-gatherer was created for change, to move, to change each and every time. And when I look at fear, when fear appeared, fear seems to, of course, like probably people living more than 10,000 years ago, they had a fear of animals, they had a fear of weather, blah 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 blah. But then when we started shifting into more agricultural economy, then there was a signal of fear of, like maybe we will lose something, maybe there will be a hurricane, maybe there will be this is so. In all the fuzzy gobbledygook that I'm presenting right now, what I'm trying to express is that I'm not necessarily sure whether we are afraid of failure and experimenting, or whether organizational culture or our education has just put us in the framework that suggests that failure is good and we should be perfect. It's like So, and to respond to your question, why we are afraid of failure, I think it's our upbringing and education again that plays very important role. That we are that I don't know about you. At my school, I was not really encouraged to try and test, to try and test and try and test. I was encouraged to learn by heart and then present my knowledge during a test. So it was very far from learning how I can how I can grow in life from my own experiences. It was more about a promise. If you are perfect, you will have perfect job, you will have perfect family, you will have perfect flat, or you will have perfect car, and you will have perfect holiday, like very shortly, briefly speaking.
Yeah.
So why? Because the mindset was or has been how it how it has been. Simply
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
education, upbringing, and so on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, I completely agree with you. It's very hard to probably say the one reason where this fear is coming from. I think you rightly mentioned like these evolutionary reasons, right? Like the famous tiger standing in front of you, and then the fear is helpful, and
Mhm.
maybe really to some extent we now live with this biological or even chemical dysfunction, right? That we can have to somehow unlearn because it's not really helpful often. Maybe it's also the environment, the education for sure is a big factor. Uh, and I'm also wondering whether in the end it's so important to know why we have this. So I think the fact is we have it, and the fact is also it's not very useful, right? As you say, for a creativity process, for innovation, it hinders innovation, it hinders progress. So that's why I find really important the work that you're doing of creating these environments where people can fail, and encouraged to fail, right? And which again plays a lot has a lot to do with psychological safety. One more question about that.
Mhm.
Can we as humans learn empathy?
Can humans learn empathy? Yes, but it's not an easy process. So, and it starts from this aspect of reflection, because I believe that in order to have empathy to other people, you need to also put yourself in their shoes. So you need to read yourself, and so like developing self empathy is as important part of it, important step. Like like how they say, if you want to love others, you need to love yourself first. So I believe that it's the same with empathy, and you can develop it with reflection. And then whenever you have opinions, like ask about opinions of others and see how many perspectives there are. Note down the perspectives of other people. Note
Mm.
down what other people feel about the same topic. So basically, a little bit of reflection and then a little bit of ethnographic observation, so to say. And it's not
Mm.
fast. It's a lifelong journey. At least for me, it has been a lifelong journey to develop empathy and to
Mhm.
still, because we have many impulses, like ego impulses, right? Like judge, blame, refuse, say, like, and it's not easy to really, you know, keep the empathy all the time, the
Yeah.
same level of empathy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
responding to a question, yes, and the great first step is self-reflection. So what happened? How did it influence me? What did I learn from this experience? How can I use my learning? It's a great step to start developing your self-empathy. And then the second step, like maybe I shouldn't present it as a linear steps, but as factors. So the first factors is self-empathy and self-observation, and the other is observation of others. And this you can use for this you can use some ethnographic method, like observation, like an interview. So basically, so you can basically chat with people, listen to them, and map
Mhm.
how they
Mhm.
interpret certain situations. Is the
Yeah.
easiest. So map yourself, map others, or have some notes on yourself, on your experiences, and pull them also from others.
Yeah.
to put
Yeah.
it as simply as possible.
Yeah. I think one big phenomenon that is maybe behind this is also curiosity, right? Curiosity for yourself and curiosity for other people. And I really agree with the point that you mentioned that probably uh, it's useful to start with yourself, because one word that I found very important that you just said is ego. And I think ego is something that I as an individual have to deal with myself first, because I have an ego. Everybody has his or her own ego. And often I think that's one of the big things that stand in the way of empathy. So cognitively, I understand, yes, I should be empathetic. As a leader, I have to show empathy now. And I try, but for different reasons, which are maybe also connected to my ego, I'm not able to do that. And also on the team level, I think when we think back also about teams, on a team level, often it's also, I think, a big burden if there are some very big egos in a team. So one or two very egocentric people in a team can also make the whole teamwork process more complicated, right? And so I think the whole topic of ego is probably a very big one, both on an individual level, but also on a team level, right?
Yeah, what's important from my perspective is that ego is not you. Your ego is not you. You are
Mm.
you. Your ego is something that has been created by you to protect you. But like, yeah, but again, we are shifting a little bit to the philosophical or even like
Well, I think it's good.
soul related part of the story. But yes, definitely self reflection and self observation, leaving yourself space to leave
Mm.
your traditional protocol
Yeah.
and develop new form, new habit.
Maybe if we come more to the practical implications, maybe like concrete steps that everybody can
Mhm.
do. I would be curious to know, what can I do as a leader if I'm a leader of a team? Easy things I can do to improve my teamwork, and what are things that I can do if I'm a team member? So I'm not a leader, but I'm a member of a team, and I still feel the need to do something. And maybe I don't have money to hire you, and I kind of have to do it on my own. What would be like easy things that I can do?
I would say that the first thing that you as a leader can do is regularly retrospect with your team and really shut up and listen.
Hmm.
It's a great first step, and it's one of the most important steps that you will take on your leadership journey. If you are a team member, then of course, apart of being supportive, open, and promoting psychological safety, asking for feedback, seeking this feedback, and leading by example, so other people also feel comfortable to seek for feedback, you might also think of learning some principles of human-centered design / design thinking, some methods that will help you run better conversations with other people, both with your leaders and with your team members.
Mm-hmm.
And like building on methods, you might also look at problem analysis methods. You might also look at some prototyping methods in order to be able to like collect insights, observe people, get their feedback regularly, and really learn how to pull feedback from people, like how to choose people for feedback and how to pull this feedback from people. I think it's the one of the most important skills that you can learn,
Mm.
because it requires mindset shift from treating feedback as a threat to treating feedback as a growth opportunity, as like a lighthouse for your next steps.
Yeah.
And of course, you need to choose your feedback givers wisely. So, again, the easiest thing that you can do as a leader is regularly retrospect with your team what is working well, what is not working, how can you can improve, and really, as a leader, drive these improvements or communicate why they are not possible. This follow
Yeah.
up is extremely important. And right now, to wrap it up, like I would say from the team member perspective, pull feedback from people, plan this feedback, be supportive, and if you have some space and budget, learn principles of human-centered design or design thinking to be able to just create better conversations both with your leaders and with your team members.
Yeah, yeah. I have three quick last questions to end with. First one, I think it's a classic. I hear it from many of my friends. What if I don't really like my colleagues?
Well, it very much depends on whether you know them or you don't know them, right? And also whether they suck your energy and lower your engagement and motivation or not. If not, it's okay not to like your colleagues. Observe yourself whether you are able still to go for task-related conflicts and whether they are still task-related or personality-related, and like self-monitor yourself not to go for personality-related conflicts. And now, if you already know them, okay, if you know them and they don't suck your energy, okay. If you know them and they suck your energy, you will need to change environment. If you don't know them, then get to know them. Learn a little bit about their lives and about their stories. You know, everybody has a story, and our stories differ, and our behavior comes from our stories. So it's not that we are assholes sometimes. It's about that we experienced certain situations in our life, and right now we are defending ourselves from some potential negative consequences. So this is why we behave in a way that you consider as not the most engaging way or the best way.
Yeah.
I would
I think
say.
it's a good way. It's a good way to approach it. Yeah. Another question that I have, it is about individualism versus collectivism, let's call it. I have the feeling that still many companies now have this ideal or this ideal picture, let's say, of a family, right? We are like kind of a family. The team is a family. And I struggle a bit with this metaphor because the families that I know, they don't all work very well. So, especially if you think about the last Christmas gathering or so, like families are not the most functioning organizations, not always.
Yeah.
But there's still this idealism of saying, we have these shared values. And I feel it to some extent, it contradicts a bit this idea of everybody being able to show up as they want, as they are, individual. Can you somehow combine these two, or is it a paradox?
Well, I observe such situations, for instance, during team coaching or individual coaching with people from more individualistic cultures versus more collectivistic cultures. While those from individualistic cultures want to focus on their progress, on their performance, quite often on their next steps, they want to have some kind of individualized approach. Those from collectivistic culture are more interested about team performance, how they can improve as a team, how we can grow, not how I can grow. But at the level of values, if you look at the values, almost all the cultures and religions that I know, if you look at the values like honesty, respect, and so on, they're quite universal values still that connect through culture. So it's less differentiating at the level of values. It's more about the approaches. And yes, we work with global companies, so we encounter quite many situations like this. And as a leader, like what you can do is still during one-on-ones adapt to the needs of a person who is with you in the room. So knowing that somebody needs more individual approach or individualistic approach, ensure that you are giving them what they need. And the same about other people. Like we all have different needs, you know. I might serve spaghetti to one person and gnocchi to some other person because they hate spaghetti, you know. It's more or less the same. And at the level of teamwork, you might also enhance the awareness, like cross-cultural awareness. So basically the easiest way to do it would be to either organize a session and give everybody culture tests, so they would like compare each other, like how, to what extent people are individualistic or collectivistic versus one another, because as we know, these culture tests only make sense if you are comparing things. They are not self-standing, or Paul is individualistic and Adam is collectivistic. You can only say Adam is more collectivistic than Paul, and this is all that you can say based on them. But it's great actually source material to drive a like team development discussion. All right, let's discuss our differences and let's try to learn. Let's try to reflect on how we can use and leverage on these differences. How can we enrich our perspective, and how can we finally feel all safe to be who we are?
Last question, because you just mentioned values. Is there one universal value that is the most important when it comes to teamwork?
Respect. Respect to yourself and respect to others. From my perspective, intuitively, maybe tomorrow, if you ask me, Paul, I might answer something else, but I believe that respect would be my choice. Like intuitive, the first that is coming from me, from inside of me, from my brain, heart, soul, all together. Respect.
I mean, I just came up with this question because you talked about values, and reflecting myself, it would be the same word for me. I would also say respect, I think.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Adam,
I
so
love
much
it.
for your time. It was really great. I wish you all the best for your company, for MakeTeamWork, and I look forward to speak to you again soon.
Super. Thank you so much for having me. Warm regards to all our listeners, and until the next time.